Fowler?
Here.
Burke?
Here.
Wilms?
Here.
John Flynn is absent.
Thank you. Citizen input, Alice Smith.
Good evening.
Evening.
I'm here for the same subject I was here last week on, or last council meeting on. Last time I was here, I talked about extortion. Your man Tapp was to give me the details on exorbitant charges I was billed for about 15 minutes work. He didn't come on the agreed date nor any other day. I left word for him to phone me. He did not. I finally was mailed copies of the items involved, including a bill from a man who supposedly did the work. There was no copy of a receipt showing him to have been paid. There has been a lien filed against my property. I want to know, is your man Tapp so ignorant of the value of $1 that he okayed this charge for work done by this man who didn't even drive his own vehicle to my house? Or is there a kickback involved? I'm beginning to suspect the latter. We just said the Pledge of Allegiance, which mentions justice for all. Where does transparency and justice begin in government? If you answer, at the lowest level, aka city government, then I'm sure you will want to investigate this. When I first received that exorbitant bill from the city, I replied with an explanation of why it was probably extortion and inaccurate, since threats were made if I didn't pay up immediately. I offered in that reply to settle for the very generous sum of $50, which was refused. I was told that the hearing for filing the lien was to be held before the city council meeting, and that's why I intended the meeting on the 28th of October. It was not. The pledge was recited, the roll called, and the meeting began. No discussion. I understand that this coercion is common in cities large and small, that it might even be legal to extort citizens. But I remind you, just because everyone does it, or even that it's legal, doesn't mean it's right, and it doesn't mean it's ethical. Where do you stand? Are you truly ethical? I ask you to do the right thing. Remove the lien against my property and notify anyone you notified of it that the matter is resolved. Additionally, I ask that the Community Development Services Department run by Mr. Tapp be investigated for corruption. I still have half a minute left. I'm curious about the minutes. I looked up the minutes online, and it was essentially an agenda of what was to have happened at the meeting. There were no minutes. Do you keep two sets of minutes? One for the council members and one for the public?
The minutes are not posted until they're approved by the council,
Okay.
which would be tonight.
Then there should have been minutes from a previous one, and I just missed them. Okay. Let's see here. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 60. My 3 minutes are up.
Thank you. Bruce Portillo.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members.
Good evening.
I am here in regard to point number 2 under old business that you have tonight, and would say this, if it is your intent to no longer pursue purchase of a portion of the Centerton water system in accordance with the memorandum of understanding currently in place, then I would fully support this. I think that there are probably better uses for our funds. I also understand that if we cannot get a USDA loan, that we are vulnerable because the water line runs between the originating city and the using city by another city, and that this city, if it so chose, because we could not get that loan, could take this away from us. So again, I strongly support no longer pursuing this position. Thank you.
We'll move into council replies. Anyone?
Mayor Christie.
Sir?
I would just say to Ms. Smith, I'm sorry, you've been through a bad experience with the city.
It's been extremely bad.
And we did have a public hearing at the last meeting.
Which was not held when it was said it was going to be held.
Okay. We did review the matter with Director Tapp at that time.
Cap is his name?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's been reviewed by the city council. Your request here tonight to be taken under advisement, but I feel like it was handled properly by.
$330 for 30 minutes max.
Yes, ma'am.
15 is more like it.
Yes, ma'am. I understand that. This
It's
is.
exorbitant.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to try
This is
to.
extortion, plain and simple.
Okay. I'm sorry you feel that way.
I'm sorry you're not more
Okay,
ethical.
this is
Okay.
one way.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
I feel like it was handled properly. I'm sorry
I
you were.
feel like you're
Okay,
wrong.
ma'am. You were
Alice.
given multiple opportunities to remedy the situation yourself, and you
$330 is
chose
way
not
out
to
of
do it.
line.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you
I
just trying to
understand
beat me
that.
up?
No, ma'am.
Then what's
Not
with the
interested.
$330?
Alice. Have you finished, sir?
That's the charge. That's the charge that the contractor who serviced the property.
And was he paid that? I would like.
Yes,
to see
Alice.
something
he
that
was.
says he was paid that.
He was
And you've
paid
got
that.
a nice little racket here going. I bet there is a kickback.
No, ma'am.
No, there's no
No
kickback,
kickbacks.
Alice.
Uh,
Okay,
really?
any,
Yes.
You don't really expect anyone with any half of
Alice.
to believe that.
Other than that, I appreciate you coming tonight. I understand you're upset. But the process did have a hearing, and it was
Okay.
properly followed. Ma'am,
Okay.
ma'am,
It was
that's
not
it.
hurried.
That's
It
the
was
end.
not- It was not done properly.
Alice,
Okay.
It was to be held before the city council meeting.
Alice,
No, ma'am.
Not during the city council.
we can
meeting.
talk about procedures. It followed procedure.
And then the only other thing, Mr. Portillo, thank you. Thank you for coming and speaking to the council and weighing in on the water proposition. Thank you very much.
Let the minutes reflect that the council is truly
If,
unethical.
if members of the audience are disorderly, they could be invited to leave by the police chief. Your
Right.
Mayor.
Okay, anybody else have any other comments on anything? Okay. We'll move into approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes to approve. The first is October the 28th. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, excuse me, roll call. Councilmember Wilms,
Aye.
Burke,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Lloyd,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
carried, 5-0.
The second set of minutes is for a special meeting that was held on November the 12th. Are there any errors or omissions? Hearing none, motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, again, roll call. Councilmember Lloyd,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
carried, 5-0.
Thank you. The next is the monthly financial report for September of 2019. We sent it out to you via email. We brought some copies for the audience. I think there's still one back there if anybody's interested in having a look at it. If there are any questions, please contact Carrie. I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read all proposed ordinances and resolutions on the agenda by title only.
So moved. Second.
All right. Councilmember Wozniak,
Yes.
Lloyd,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
carried 5-0.
Thank you. The first piece of business is an ordinance calling a special election in the city of Bella Vista, Arkansas, on the questions of issuing bonds under Amendment Number 60 to the Constitution of the State of Arkansas for the purpose of financing all or a portion of the cost of capital improvements, levying a 1% sales and use tax for the purpose of retiring such bonds, and prescribing other matters pertaining thereto. On a point of personal privilege,
Mayor, one thing,
I'm
that is
sorry?
the second reading, just to.
yes, that's the second reading, thank you. On a point of personal privilege, I would ask Chief Graves if he would address the council, please, on the needs.
While he's walking up, Mayor, I'd like to make a suspend the rules and move this to the third reading.
Okay.
Okay, we
There's
do
a
it?
second to that
Okay, we
motion.
got a second?
Second.
Okay,
Okay, so the motion is to suspend the rules and go to third and final reading,
Yes, sir.
and there's a second. So any
Okay.
debate on that would be appropriate at this point.
okay, debate on it?
I'd like to hear the chief first.
Well, that's, Mayor, you've got a motion and a second, so I think you have a choice.
Okay,
You recognize Chief Graves on a point of personal privilege. You could say that Mr. Wozniak's motion is out of order at this moment.
I will withdraw at this time and bring it back when you're done.
okay, fair enough.
And any second
And we'll
that's
take
made,
it to the
would that
board.
be revoked as well?
Okay. Chief, would you tell us, please, all
Sure.
about the new building and
Sure,
why?
sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, and thank you for having me here tonight to explain this and to talk a little more about it. I know we spoke a little bit along the way, reference the need for a new police station, and I think it's something that's been needed for a long time within the city of Bella Vista. As most folks know, and some maybe do not know, the city of Bella Vista has never had a proper police station. The building we're currently in is 7,000 square feet between the two floors. Councilmember Wozniak remembers he spent several years there as police chief himself. Currently, the department has a staff of 50 personnel, and with that staff, we currently would need, based on national averages of how many square feet per officer and things like that, we need about a building of about 14,000 square feet. So right now, we're actually, at our current staffing, we're well below what we do need. We're squeezed into 7,000 square foot building. Our current structure doesn't have what we need to at this time continue to properly police the city in a professional manner. That doesn't mean we don't try to do the best we can, but our officers aren't provided with certain things such as, for example, proper office space. We currently have individuals who have offices that are basically old closets that have been turned into offices. In law enforcement, we're really, really good at making do with what we have and just continuing on with business as normal. We currently do not have, as I said, proper office space. Our evidence section is a lot smaller than we need to have it to be. We don't have a proper training room. When we have to do training at this time, we'll have to borrow the training room from the fire department. We have no place we could do in-service training that we have to do on an annual basis. At least annually, there's mandatory training that we have to do. We use our small briefing room to do that, which then takes things away from the current staff that's working. We don't have an ability to qualify on our firearms with our own range on an annual basis, which we actually do twice a year. Currently, we'll use the POA range, and they're nice enough to allow us to use that, but they don't have to do that. But they do allow us to shut down the POA range twice a year so we can do our qualifications, which is, of course, is an inconvenience to the POA members. And so a lot of these things we do not have. Now, we looked at the mayor and I and the rest of the council, some of the individuals here, we've looked at what we could do with our current structure. And I think most folks are in agreement that the current location where that building's at and the building itself, there's not much we can do to upgrade it to make it usable at the current time or into the near future or into the future. The location just is not the most ideal location for a police station as far as security is concerned. Also, the current building we have doesn't meet a lot of the requirements that we have to have for ADA to meet ADA into the future to service folks in the community that have special needs. So we've worked at looking for a new structure, and as most folks here know, we found a location for a building, and we worked with a firm called Height Jackson and did a needs assessment, and they did a professional needs assessment for us, reaching 30 years out into the future, looking at what our needs are going to be in 30 years based on what we believe the population size of Bella Vista is going to be and the policing concerns in that time frame. With Height Jackson, we came up with a sort of a rendering of what a building may look like, which the folks here have seen, plus what that structure would provide for the department. This new police department that we're proposing is about 44,000 square feet. Now, it's not just a police department alone. It entails a court facility. This court we're in right now, as everybody knows, we're leasing. This lease will be up November, I believe, of 2020, at which time we're going to either have to continue that lease or we're going to have to move the court facility. It's always been the intention to have this court facility eventually placed within a police department in the city of Bella Vista. That is the best way to operate for small police departments in small towns, is to normally will have their court facility co-located with their police department. Also within the public safety complex is what I'm going to call it, because really what we're proposing is just not a police facility, but a public safety complex that will have within it the police department, the court system, plus a public safety dispatch that will dispatch for fire, EMS, and police. Because we currently have a dispatch center within the police department. It's not the police dispatch center. It, like I said, dispatches for fire, EMS, and police. So it's very important to understand that that's servicing many more needs within the city, as well as the streets department will they use our dispatch as well at times. So what is being proposed is that, like you had mentioned, that we do a well, I won't speak to that, but the need we're proposing is this 44,000 square foot public safety complex that will be able to service the city 30 years into the future. And what I mean by that is we're not building for our staff right now necessarily, because this is larger than our current staff needs, but because construction cost and other cost, flat land available in Bella Vista, they don't decrease over time. The standard is to build 30 years into the future. And so that's what we did with Height Jackson, is we designed a building or a proposed building that will service the city 30 years into the future. What that means in 30 years, the proposed staff, which I average, would be anywhere from 70 to 75 officers, serving a city anywhere from 50 to 55,000 residents, I think it's safe to say. In 30 years, our staff would then fit that building and start outgrowing it at that point. Also within the building, there'll be a shell space, which will allow for future growth as well, far above and beyond any time that we'll be here, at least working. And so that shell space will be able to be opened up in 30 years and then accommodate additional space within the building. So I think the best averages in talking to some of the folks, the professionals in the business, believe that we could probably get at least 50 or 60 years out of this building before we even start to need additional space beyond the initial structure. So I could rattle on for quite some time, but I'd be willing to take any questions or any concerns the council may have.
Chief Grays.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You know, I'm always interested in process, and especially so when there's such an investment required here. So we hired Height Jackson to do this needs assessment. And so is what they delivered back to us an estimate, if you will, of kind of their best guess of here's what you need and here's what we think it's going to cost?
Yes.
Okay. And then does that exclude them going forward from bidding when it comes time to actually solicit this? I assume there will be a process where this will be set out for competitive bids. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it will, and they can as well bid for that as well. They are an architectural firm that will be qualified to go out and bid themselves. But just because they did the needs assessment doesn't mean they'll do the final project.
Right.
For clarity, there is an alternative method. You can do what's called a construction management process on buildings or projects that are worth more than $2 million. And so basically in that case, the city is getting proposals for a turnkey alternative for a company to then in turn handle all the bidding and all the pricing and all of that sort of thing. This is an alternative that's allowed in projects that are at least $2 million. I think we did that on the street department building, if I'm not mistaken. I think we may be looking at possibly doing that on this building. I don't know that for a fact.
Well, I hope that we would give some consideration to that, to a company that's been advising us and consulting us for a fee, as in the case of Height Jackson, having done a needs assessment for us, that we might entertain the idea that they would be excluded from the bid process. Sometimes I think that's creating some unfair advantages that that are probably not in the city's best interest. So
Well,
I don't know where that would come into the process, but that's where I'm interested in kind of focusing our attention.
I can tell you that, and this may or may not be what you're saying, but cities are prohibited, school districts can do this, but cities are prohibited from doing what are called design-build agreements, where you have a contract for the entity to design and then in turn build the structure. Cities are not authorized to do that. Now, we're talking about a separate procurement process. I do not know of a prohibition on a company that had designed also entering into a competitive bidding situation to build, but it would be a separate consideration. And like I said, in the construction management method, you are procuring a professional to go out and find best prices and sort of act on our behalf to do all these things, and you can build lots of incentive into those contracts to try to do cost-cutting measures. Sometimes cost-cutting measures can come from entities that have already put significant work into a project, so they may already have certain information at hand. I don't know if that particularly answers your question, but
Well, I think I've made my point. I think we should give some consideration to excluding the people who have been consulting us from bidding on the contract in the end. But maybe the kind of the related question that goes with that, and I'm sorry I don't understand again all the internal processes of the city yet, but where is the responsibility on the city side for examining what will be the bid at some point, for examining that bid, understanding those costs, rationalizing those costs? Where does that role come from in the city?
So it's a two-part answer. We will be going to bid as well for construction managers. Typically, when you're doing a construction, the architect will offer a construction management position, as well as working with the builder. The problem you have with that is that the construction manager is not necessarily giving you an independent assessment. In other words, he's tied back to the architectural firm, and if you remember the pricing, the architectural firm gets 7% of everything that goes into the building. So what we did on the fire station and on the street building is we hired a project manager for each separate from, and they work directly for us. So the plan would be that when we go to bid, after we have selected the project manager, and we're going to bid now for the architectural drawings, now we've got an expert that can help us, and he can go, no, you don't need that because of this. And on the city side, that would reside with the CDS and the planning department, and then it would have to go through the planning commission as well, where we have two professional engineers sitting on it.
CES is,
CDS,
oh,
Community Development.
Or
Okay.
Community Development
All right.
Services.
they have a role in
Oh, very much
actually
Big role.
examining the bids for, as I say, to rationalize those amounts.
And then the project manager for the police will be Chief, and the project manager for the fire will be Chief Sims, and he's done that before with other fire buildings that we've put together.
Okay, my final comment would just be that I think the thing that protects the city and the taxpayers of Bella Vista more than anything else is a completely level playing field when it comes to the competitive bids. And we want to bend over backwards to make sure there are no unfair advantages. All of these bidders have the opportunity to come in and win that job by putting in the best bid, typically the lowest bid. Those are things that I think are the main thresholds for making sure that we're getting our value for the dollar that we're spending.
And we're legally obligated, we must do that.
Yeah, we must do
We
that
must
by
do that.
law.
So,
Yeah, and I don't know why we would eliminate a potential bidder like Hyatt Jackson, and what if they would be the low bidder?
Well, only
May I-
because
may
I'm not sure they have, that everybody has the same advantage at that point. They've been advising us all through the process, and I think it's not uncommon for your advisors to be excluded. I don't know this in the public sector, but I know this in the private sector. If you're being consulted by somebody, typically they would be excluded from the bid process.
Being professional services like the architect or engineer, that would be something that would not be bid. It would be a statement of qualification.
Statement
You
of
select them based on
qualifications,
their
correct.
ability to perform, and then the proposal that they bring forward, you would look at the information based on an outline you've asked them to respond to, and then a committee of some sort, maybe the mayor and the chief, or the mayor and Chief Sims, would look at those and select from the whole group that submitted qualifications a short list to interview, and then from that short list select a firm. So it's not a price thing for the professional services, only the construction side, normally.
Then what could happen is you could get somebody who wins your bid who doesn't have a clue how to build a cop shop. But it's entirely building a police department with its security issues than it is building an office building.
Well,
You would much rather have somebody who's done that in the past, and there's many out there, than have someone who's never built one before.
Well, that comes in the qualifications, I think.
that's in your list of qualifications. You'd automatically eliminated those firms without experience.
You would hope so.
Well, you would. If they submit one, if someone submits one and it doesn't meet that basic qualification of your outline, you just set them aside and don't consider them further.
Linda?
Yeah, I just want to commend Chief Graves and his police department folks for the kind of job they're doing in a woefully inadequate building. Having been through the 10 weeks of the Citizens Police Academy and seeing what all they do, it's amazing that they can even go to work every day in that current structure.
Second that.
We used to just have the first story of that building. And we used to share the fire department side before they built the lounge and the classroom. Think about that.
Okay. Chief, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a motion to suspend the rules and move it to third reading.
Just before you do that,
Okay.
we received a call today from the Benton County Board of Elections. They asked if possible to have this passed by December the 3rd, because on that date, they're actually doing their drawing for placement on the ballot. After consulting with Mr. Bowman this evening, we are not necessarily bound by that. We still have the 70 days, which would put us just before Christmas, if I remember correctly, Ryan. Yeah. But we have had this request from Benton County Board of Elections. Okay.
May I,
Yes.
just one last thing. Yep. Linda had a really good point, and I just want to reiterate. There was a gentleman in the Weekly Vista, I don't know, 6 weeks ago. I'm just going to throw a number. I don't know what it was. And he wrote a letter to the editor, and he wasn't in support of like a new police station or fire either, I don't believe. But he made a visit to our police department and took a tour. I don't know if it was with the chief or maybe it was one of the detectives, I'm not certain. But he came back a couple weeks later and wrote another letter and said he had erred. So anyone that questions this, or you're on the fence, you don't know for sure, just go visit and take a tour, and you will see that we very sorely need this new police station. What they're operating out of currently is just way substandard versus where we should be today. So.
And I might add that we have actually had a group of citizens get together, and in fact, the co-chairs are here this evening, and they're calling themselves Citizens Improving Public Safety, and we welcome them. And they had an organizational meeting just recently. All sorts of great ideas were thrown out as to what to do, and the first, I believe, is happening this week, if not tomorrow. And we're actually going to have a video made of the inside of the police station, along with comments from the chief. And I believe the same will be done for Fire Station number 3. So my thanks to the committee, and I look forward to working with them.
Now?
Now what?
Okay. Move to suspend the rules and move to third reading.
Move to suspend the rules, go to third and final reading, and read by title only.
Yes.
Second.
Second.
Okay, so you're voting now
Any further
on
debate the
suspending the
suspension
rules.
of the rules?
Okay, we're ready for the vote. Councilmember Lloyd,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
carried.
Okay, I'll now read for the third and final. An ordinance calling a special election in the city of Bella Vista, Arkansas on the questions of issuing bonds under Amendment Number 62 to the Constitution of the State of Arkansas for the purpose of financing all or a portion of the cost of capital improvements, levying a 1% sales and use tax for the purpose of retiring such bonds and prescribing other matters pertaining thereto. Discussion.
That's the third and final reading.
That's the third and final reading. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Any further debate on that? So the question is on passage of the ordinance.
Correct. Roll call vote again. Councilmember Bork,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Lloyd,
Yes.
carried, 5-0.
Thank you. The second piece.
Mayor, I've been
Yes.
asked by council, just so the minutes could reflect, in addition to publication of the ordinance that you just passed, it's the intention to post the ordinance at 5 locations within the city. Those 5 locations would be the City Hall Bulletin Board at 101 Town Center at the front door, the City Library, Dickens Place, Fire Station number 2 on the front door, Fire Station number 3 on the front door, and the Street Department headquarters on the front door on Highway 279. The minutes just need to reflect that.
Wayne, I have a copy here for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The second piece of old business is a resolution expressing the intent of the city council no longer to pursue purchase of a portion of the Centerton water system in accordance with the memorandum of understanding currently in place between the parties. This is tabled from the August meeting. We've had a great deal of discussion. This goes back to the previous mayor, where he first thought that this might be a good idea. I picked up on it, and over the last 3 years, a great deal of work has been done by many members of council, as well as our water attorneys and our own attorney. Things have changed. New stuff has come to light. As Mr. Portillo mentioned during his remarks, it gets a little convoluted, but if you have Centerton supplying water over to Bella Vista and it's running through Gravett, if the line is protected by a loan through the USDA, then Gravett does not have the right to maintain that water. Unfortunately, Bella Vista, if we were to purchase this, does not qualify for a USDA loan. Therefore, we have no protection, which means that if we were to purchase it, the city of Centerton, or excuse me, the city of Gravett, if they bring a water source up into this area, then we are obliged to sell what we just bought to Gravett. Could it happen tomorrow? Probably not. Sometime in the future, possibly, especially since Mayor Maddox over in Gravett has told me that he intends to bring a water source up here. So that has changed my mind completely. I don't believe we should be spending taxpayer dollars on something that we're going to buy and then sometime in the future turn around and sell it. I believe there are better ways to be looking at other options. We do know that there are businesses down on Highway 71 that are on wells because they cannot get Beaver Lake water. And I have contacted every one of those owners. They have all expressed a desire to be on Beaver Lake water. There are a number of ways of doing it. We could talk to Bentonville about bringing water up 71, and I have contacted them, and they would be willing to sit down and discuss with us. we may want to revisit with our friends over in the old Bella Vista water system. And we may want to sit down and talk to the POA water people as well. So there are a number of options that I believe that we should be exploring. I'm going to ask for final comments from the members of council. We'll try and keep them brief because we've been through this so many times, but I would suspect that there are some who would like to say a few words. Who's first? Don't everybody speak at once. Doug?
I can say a few things.
Larry?
I think that are salient to the discussion. The city entertained and had a strategic plan prepared and adopted by the City Council in 2012. There were two significant and pertinent recommendations in that strategic plan. One was that we construct Fire Station 4. That's been implemented. There was another recommendation that a city-owned water system to service non-POA parcels in the city by 2015. That opportunity is now before us, despite possible risks that have been discussed. And those risks are possible, not guaranteed. I think that there are a number of obstacles for Gravit ahead of them, taking over a water service area currently supporting a USDA loan, the 1926B area, may make it prohibitive for Gravit to even build their own system to take over the service area that Centerton currently owns because of the USDA loans that they have on that system. So that might be something that perhaps Gravit has not considered at this point, but it may totally prevent them from doing what they've stated they want to do. Secondly, we're now in the process of completing a new 2040 strategic plan for the city called a comprehensive plan. In that comprehensive plan, it likewise recommends multiple times in multiple locations in the entire document that the city needs to invest in public infrastructure. That could be streets, could be roadways, could be water mains, could be sewer mains, could be stormwater drainage, could be anything in the public improvement sector to support development of lands that are currently undeveloped or developable but don't have utility services. That plan has not been adopted by the City Council, has not been adopted by the Planning Commission. It's in process. I understand that we're expecting a new draft copy in a couple of weeks at best. Should be here before December 1st, I understand. We've gone through about 2.5 years of effort to get us at this point. Required an engineering report defining the purchase area, how the city would operate it, and a number of other details. It also, that has been approved by the Department of Health in the state. So we now have a designated water system number. So we're recognized as having a number assigned to us. That doesn't reach fruition until we act to purchase the Centerton system so that we have a system to operate. We also are required to get approval on a water service area. The transfer of that system from Centerton to Bella Vista required approval of the ANRC, Arkansas Natural Resources Commission, now under the Department of Agriculture by the State Reorganization Program. They held a public hearing here in the middle of October. Staff indicated at the conclusion of the hearing that their recommendation was for the ANRC Commission approval of the service area being proposed to be purchased by Bella Vista, and also a larger service area to cover future service to lands in the city and outside the city for that matter. There are lands outside the city to the west along the I-49 corridor to be constructed going northward that are outside the city but are currently in the Bella Vista POA water service area. If in selling the land they do not become POA members, then the POA system could not service them, and we would be able to. I think it's unwise to throw in the towel. I think there are risks, but in the options cited by the mayor of other ideas, I think there are a number of issues that will come to the fore once we dig into those as well. They may or may not be as difficult or as complex, but
The cost,
maybe even more difficult and more complex, making those unviable in the end, and we've lost our opportunity to have a public water system now. Having a public water system gives us a boat, and it gives us an oar in the water, and it changes our position in terms of providing water service to the properties along US 71, as the mayor pointed out, who would like to have public water. If we go the mayor's route and do not purchase the water from Centerton, it puts us back by 2 to 2.5 years to go through this whole process again to get to this same point. Spending again more money than we did the first time, and we will be committed to paying out between $65,000 and $75,000 by my numbers to walk away from this deal. I don't think that that's a wise expenditure of city money. If we are forced to sell in the future to Gravit, we will be able to get the money back that we've invested, as well as any improvements that we've invested in. A court of law reasonably would allow us that response. If we drop the program now and go ahead with one of the options the mayor has recited, I think the option of purchasing the POA water system, the Bella Vista POA water system, is unlikely. I think it's owned by the POA, but because it's listed as an amenity in the bylaws that Cooper recorded, I think they have veto authority. I don't think that can be overruled. With purchase of the water system now, in other words, we vote this resolution down, if we could proceed tomorrow to provide water service to those properties along 71. If we turn this down and decline the opportunity with Centerton, it will give us a 2 to 2.5 year delay in getting us to the same point again. And that still will be fraught with obstacles, unknowns that we haven't unearthed yet or found out about. So I am definitely not in support of approving this resolution. My granddaughter used to tell me, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. He also said that the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. And I believe that to be true. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Next.
Okay, so police department, fire training facility, and I appreciate where we're going with that. We're looking into the future, right? We need to prepare for that. We need to move forward. And my perspective on the purchase of the Centerton Water Department is basically the same thought. In my opinion, we need to move forward. And although, you know, police and fire are certainly critical, neither one of those are going to generate any revenue for the city. And if we had, you know, the correct commercial development or any commercial development in Bella Vista, potentially, rather than chasing a 1% sales tax increase, maybe it would be a 0.5%, 1/4%, maybe an 1/8%, because our base is so low. You know, wish we didn't have to pursue any at all. So as Larry mentioned, you know, we've been working on this really hard, really diligently for the last few months since this resolution was proposed. It kind of blindsided us, quite honestly, because I thought we were just waiting for some lawsuits to move out of the way, and when they did, we would be able to move forward. So when it was proposed, it's really caused us to roll up our sleeves. I'm not going to take you through a lot of the details that we have gone through, but you know, we need to put cost structure together and understand rates and just do all this math. And then there was a lot of legwork. You know, to talking to people that had experience and they know what they're talking about. And, you know, my takeaway from those conversations is that development can't take place without infrastructure, water and sewer, just can't. That's necessary. And, you know, having said that, when I take another step back with a little bit more broad picture, I look at the position that we're in as a city geographically, right? We have Bentonville to the south. We have McDonald County to the north. And if you look at Bentonville to the south, we have Lowe's, we have McDonald's. Hell, we're going to have a Starbucks go in. Are any of those in Bella Vista? No. You go up to the state line. We have Walmart, we have McDonald's, we have Orscheln's, Taco Bell, we have a new veterinarian's clinic. We have, of course, some convenience stores as well, and they were there probably just because we couldn't sell alcohol in Benton County, you know, prior to a certain date, or maybe some of that would have been in Bella Vista. But from both those sides, we have a ton of revenue going outside of Bella Vista and going other places, not here. Now you look on the west side of Bella Vista, and we can lament all we want about how we should have been the city that annexed Gravette. Didn't happen. Won't go into the details of that. I'm not even sure. It's all kind of muddy. I'm not even sure of the details, but it didn't happen. So now Gravette has it. And they have a city limit completely borders the west side of Bella Vista, right? So Glasgow Highlands exit point, Hiwassee exit point, 279 and 72 exit point, and all Bella Vista residents are all heading out that way. Well, Gravette has that property now. It's theirs. So when this I-49 comes through, what's going to happen? They're going to be developing on those exit points. So naturally, they're going to be capturing a lot of sales and tax revenue that's going to be coming down I-49, might stop at, who knows, a Casey's or whatever it is that's going to go in at those different places, and things will go in. But they're also going to be capturing Bella Vista resident revenue. And our money is going to go to them to fund their streets, their fire, their police. And then I take it just a step farther. I know there isn't anything that can be done about this, but I take it a little personal. I look at my property taxes, and if you look at them, you will find that the largest percentage of your property taxes, at least on the west side, now on the east side goes to Bentonville, but on the west side, it goes to Gravette. And I guarantee you it's way disproportional versus the number of students that we send over there. Just the way it is, I suppose. But Gravette is going to really be benefiting from the residents of Bella Vista. And I hear about their efforts and the mayor, and they're going to court, and there's a potential that if we go ahead and pursue this, and if we buy it, well, they're going to come back, and now they're going to sue us, or they're going to take it to court, and we're going to be forced to sell, if we go through with this purchase, our portion back to them. I don't know. If it's positioned correctly, maybe they'll decide they need to back off of that. We ought to at least be able to pursue the 279 corridor, and that is a very viable corridor in my estimation. I live over off the Scottsdale Golf Course. I used to always drive, and my wife, 71 into Bentonville all the time. Now, we rarely ever drive down 71. We go 271 and hit the bypass and go in. It's probably not a whole lot faster, but it is faster, and it's a much more enjoyable ride versus hitting all the stoplights and hitting the traffic. So, and every time I go, it never fails that I have 4 to 5 cars minimum in front of me that I follow out going 35 miles an hour, to Hiwassee. But I'm just saying, if we purchase this water department, we have an opportunity to upgrade that infrastructure and get some commercial, some retail development. Some people call it speculation, but I think it's only speculation unless we have people that aren't willing to work to go out and recruit and convince people to come in on that corridor. If we just have 1 or 2 things happen over there, and granted, I will say we will have to have some of the people that own the property de-annex from Gravit and re-annex into Bella Vista, but that's something we can write into ordinances if somebody wants to do a major development, commercial development, retail development, whatever, that if they would desire to do that, we put the infrastructure in, we can require them to move into the city of Bella Vista in order to access our water, because we're the ones that are investing the money in it, okay? And so a couple of proposals have just come to light, or let me say this, I think they're more discussion points than they are proposals, because at this particular point, they haven't gone anywhere. It's just kind of talk. The purchase of the Bella Vista POA water system, and Larry mentioned that, so that's one. And secondarily, talking to the city of Bentonville and maybe lines up 71 that we could run underneath 71 and up into the businesses over on the west side of the highway, okay? If we don't purchase, as Larry said, this water department out here, then if we do want to pursue the purchase of the Bella Vista, the old Bella Vista POA water system, if we don't have this one out here and we're not a water district, then we're going to have to go through all the same process that we just went through, getting to the point to be able to buy this one. We're going to have an engineering studies done. We have to go back to the board, and we have to reapply. So we have to go through all that a couple years, and we have to spend the money to do it again. Secondarily, if we let Bentonville do it, and they bring the water up, two things. First of all, they still own the water, so we don't control our own destiny in that regard. Secondarily, they're a large water authority. They're going to have to go through budget talks, budget approvals, and so on and so forth. So you're still talking a couple of years, you know. So that's where we would be with that. And also, I don't know if this is a potential or not, but Larry brought it up earlier today, but if we have our own water district or water authority, whatever you want to call it, there's a potential that we could talk to the POA, and I believe we may have legal standing. I don't know. I don't want to talk out the corner of my mouth and be misleading anybody. That's not who I am. But we could request to be able to put water meters and access some of these pockets of areas in Bella Vista that don't currently have water and be able to supply them with water through the city. So there's a lot of potential there, and there's a lot of conversation, discussion that needs to happen. But I think it's worth taking the risk. I will say this about Gravit, as much as I kind of get a little bit sideways with what's going on, you know, on the bordering our west side of the city, and then them having the conversations of lawsuits or trying to take something from us that we may purchase. I'll give them one thing, at least they fight for what they want, you know, and my position is I think we should do the same thing. You know, I mean, I don't know. What do we have to lose, really? It's time to move forward. It's time to make some things happen for this city, you know, that haven't been happening. I mean, we have a developer here, and we know they're not really doing anything. I keep saying it. I don't want to beat them up. They have their reasons, whatever they are, but we just can't keep waiting and waiting and waiting. There are other things we need in the city besides a fire station, a police station, and a fire training facility. I mean, we need those, but there are other things as well. One last point is on this 279 corridor, we already have street department, we have a state-of-the-art fire department, community development services right over here, the court, all these city entities, we buy water from Centerton. So if we purchase this, we're actually going to be buying water from ourselves, right? And then we're talking about a future police department up here and a court, and then eventually placing a city hall, I think, in between a new police station, if it happens, and the street department. So we're going to have all these city entities out here, and we're either going to be purchasing water from Centerton, or if Gravit is successful, we'll be purchasing water from Gravit. I don't know about you, kind of tired of it. So that's my position. When I first started, I was supportive of it, didn't even really know all the reasons why. The longer and harder that I have worked to the end, to get to the end of this, I am steadfastly supportive of doing this. We need to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Next, Woz.
I won't take near as long, but anything that Doug just said reference retail businesses out by the bypass, that's nowhere near Bella Vista. Nowhere near. It's all in Gravit. Gravit's going to benefit from that regardless of who gives them water. There's going to be, if they do develop out there and people think they want to annex into Bella Vista, you're going to have gaps in between. You can't create an island. So if somebody goes out there and builds all these retail places out by the bypass, and then they want to come in, it's not going to happen. Okay? What we haven't discussed is what it's going to cost. And from what we've been told, we're going to have to raise the current people's rates anywhere from, depending on what number you want to use or what meeting you may have attended, anywhere from 10 to 50% to 80-some people who are on it. We don't raise it that high, we have to pay the difference every month. It's sort of like you buy a business, and are you willing to take it into shorts for 3 or 4 or 5 years and hope something happens to make even? Can you hold on that long? If we, purchase this, the first things we have to do is increase the line. That's an additional cost. That's more money we have to make up somehow. If everything Larry says falls in a line, you put all your dominoes together and everything falls in a line, it will work. But if any one of them, just one, falls out, it's going to cost the city money, a lot of it. Granted, there's potential out there, but how long do you want to keep paying to wait till something happens? An excuse I like to use, and I've been here long enough to know, when they built the 4-lane from the state line to Joplin 30-plus years ago, how much is built between here and Joplin? When they built the bypass from Fayetteville to Fort Smith, that's 30-plus years old. What kind of development do you see out there? If we have to wait that long for the bypass, which is nowhere near us, nowhere near city limits, and if you talk about the first exit just outside of Hiwassee, there's maybe hope for that one, we may see some. But the other one's halfway to Gravit next to the cemetery. It is way out there, a long ways from anything we own, and Gravit, again, owns everything in between. If we have to wait that long, how much are we going to pay and now get no return? Just a thought.
Thanks, Wallace. Linda or Linda?
Yep. I've been in favor of this from the beginning. There have been some concerns that have, mostly because of us being classified as a water utility and what that brings us in the future. There have been some recent developments that have made me question the financial viability. However, I've also listened to a number of Bella Vista residents that have spoken to me about this issue, and all the ones that have spoken to me were in favor of it, and I feel I need to support them. Still having some concerns about several of the things that the mayor has mentioned. Thank you.
I'll throw in 2 cents. I'll be brief. I think that this is a complex matter, that intelligent, well-informed people, in the end, it looks like there's going to be some disagreement among council. We won't be unanimous on this. I have a lot of respect for my fellow council members, most especially Council Member Fowler and Council Member Wilm, for the effort that they've put into this, the thoughtfulness that they put into it. For me, on the face value, the city owning a water utility makes good sense. We would rather control than be controlled. But this is not an all-or-nothing proposition. There are other possibilities for us to get water. The speculative nature of this particular proposition, whereby we are counting on property owners along the 279 corridor to de-annex from Gravit and join into Bella Vista, to me, is very highly speculative. And for the size of the investment, which is not just the acquisition cost in the neighborhood of $350,000, but what would it take, what investment would it take from Bella Vista to utilize this, to leverage this utility in the areas that we want to leverage it? And that calls for another $2 million of investment. So when I measure this, when I weigh this, I think in terms of a $2.4 million investment. I don't see the immediacy of the return on that investment. For me, with all due respect to the other members of council who feel otherwise, for me, I feel like it's too speculative. We should look, I think it's opened our eyes to the need for Bella Vista to have a water utility. We've smoked out, if you will, some other possibilities for where we might get into control of a water line, and I think we ought to be pursuing those. Perhaps they will come with less, with higher probability, with less speculation, and could even be, again, in the sweet spot for Bella Vista.
Line.
Today, as it stands today, is still the Highway 71 corridor. So I think that those possibilities, we've shined the light on some of those, and that's where we ought to focus going forward.
Thank you. Okay, thanks for your remarks. Okay, now it's to put it to a vote. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Motion can die for lack of a second, Mayor.
Okay. Steve?
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
So just for, I think everyone understands, but this is a resolution which says the city does not wish to move forward. So a yes vote would be if you do not wish to move forward with water. A no vote would be if you do want to move forward with water.
Okay. Do a roll call vote. Councilmember Lloyd,
No.
Councilmember Wozniak,
Yes?
Councilmember Wilms,
No.
Councilmember Fowler,
No.
Councilmember Bork.
Yes.
So it is defeated 2-3.
Okay. Okay, moving on to new business. The first is a resolution supporting House Joint Resolution 1018 of 2019, HGR 1018 of 2019, proposing an amendment to the Arkansas Constitution to levy a one-half sales tax and use tax for state highways and bridges, county roads, bridges, and other surface transportation, city streets, bridges, and other surface transportation after retirement of the bonds authorized in Arkansas Constitution Amendment 91 as special revenue to be distributed under the Arkansas Highway Revenue Distribution Law. What that means is the half-cent tax that is currently in place is going away, I believe, in 2023. It's going to be on the ballot. This is a request from the Arkansas Municipal League, of which we are members. They're asking all cities to pass this resolution to lend their support to the continuation of the tax. Certainly, we have done very well from having this tax. It has improved our turnback greatly so that we can continue to improve our 550 miles of streets, of which there are, after going to every single street after the August event, it turns out it was over 2,700 streets that we have here. So we need this money to continue in order to maintain the upkeep of our streets. But it is a request from AML. I'll open it up for discussion.
Mayor Christie, I have a couple comments on that. I appreciate your comments in this, but to me, this kind of a resolution for this House Joint Resolution 1018, which has already passed, it's not up for the legislature to review. It is going to be in the general election, on the general election ballot come November. So it's already, as far as I'm concerned, it's already up to the voters. That's where it ought to be. I'm not sure I see any muscle or any effectiveness whatsoever in the city council drawing up a resolution to say that we support it. So for me, I don't think it's a matter that that the state legislatures ought to deal with. I wish they could find a way to lower the state component of our sales tax, which is at 6.5%. I wish they could find a way to lower it. I really do. I don't like being the highest state in the country when it comes to sales tax. So they've determined, I think, that this is the best way is to renew this half penny, And they're going to put that before the voters, and that's where it ought to be. So for me, I don't favor the resolution.
Okay. Anyone else, Was?
Yeah, they asked us to support this because you never know how the legislature's going to go. But if all 499 cities in the state of Arkansas get together and hand this to the legislatures, I think that'll carry a lot of weight if you got a legislature on the fence.
No, sir. They've already voted.
They haven't voted. They
Yes, they
voted
have.
so we can vote on it. This
No,
is
sir.
coming in front of the people.
That's
This
right.
is not
Not
a done deal.
legislators.
This comes in front of the people in 2 years.
That's right. Yeah, on the general election. No, not in 2 years. Next year, on the general
Right, okay, so
election.
next year, but if it doesn't pass in 2 years, the money's gone, $400,000 a year.
3 years, right. 2020.
$400,000 a year gone.
But
Right.
it will be a referendum for the public to vote on, the residents of Arkansas, and our action here is actually perfunctory.
But you don't think
Your
all the cities
premise-
backing it would make a difference?
Councilmember Wozniak, your premise is wrong. The legislators have already acted. They've
But
already.
you don't think all them people getting together and having the legislators push a little harder when they go back to their constituents won't help?
That's up to the legislators.
Okay?
Anyone else? Okay. I'd entertain a motion to approve. Okay, we'll move on. The next resolution is setting the meeting schedule of the Bella Vista City Council for calendar year 2020. You'll note that there are no locations mentioned for our work sessions, so that it'll increase our flexibility, so that if this area is being used for a community event, as it was for the graduation ceremony of the Citizens Police Academy, we were able to adjourn and actually meet down in City Hall. So that's why that has been taken out. Steve, I know that was of a concern to you. Are there any discussions at all?
My preference would be that we hold both the work sessions and the council meetings at this location. It provides better access for the public. Granted, there are some perhaps downsides to it, but I think it provides better access for the public. It's a standard location for everyone. They're accustomed to coming here for regular meetings, which is where we will be anyway. So the work session, I would recommend that we book those and set them aside early. If there's a conflict, then we can deal with that at the alternate location as we did in our November meeting.
But if we put it down in black and white, then we've got a problem. Because if it's in here that we will meet there, and there's a community event that wants to meet here, we've got a problem. We have no flexibility.
Councilmember Wilm, I do agree, and I brought that up in our work session. I do agree that this is a more appropriate facility for those kinds of meetings, but that location requirement has been pulled from the schedule at this point. So really, all we're being asked to approve tonight is the schedule of dates with recognition that the regular sessions will be held in this meeting.
Correct.
The rest of that we can defer. We can continue to discuss that and select the right forum for the work sessions.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? Wayne?
Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Lloyd,
Yes.
carried 5-0.
Thank you. The next resolution, establishing residential and commercial rates for solid waste trash collection in the city. Our contract calls for price change, if applicable, every year, and it's guided in the contract by the sewer, trash, and water CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which at the time of negotiations was 4.2, and we got it down to 3.5, which is a 41-cent increase per month for trash for the residents. And the commercial rates, of course, went up accordingly as well. Are there any questions about this at all? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Councilmember Wozniak,
Yes.
Lloyd,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
carried 5-0.
Thank you. The final resolution for the evening is authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a 5-year lease agreement addendum with Vancon Properties LLC for office space for the Community Development Services Department. We are seeing an increase of $50 a month to a total of $2,200 a month. And as I say, it would be for 5 years, valid from 12/1/29
Today.
11/30/2024. Are there any questions at all?
One question that I have is the $50 rate is the increase from our current lease to the new lease?
Yes,
And is that constant at $2,200 for the whole 5 years?
yes. Anything else? Okay, to entertain a motion to approve.
Move
So-
to approve.
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Lloyd,
Yes.
Flynn, excuse me, Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
carried 5-0.
Okay, meetings and announcements. The next city council work session will be held Monday, December the 9th at 5:30 here in the Bella Vista Conference Room. The next regular meeting of the city council will be Monday, December 16th at 6:30 here in the court building. The planning commission work session will be Thursday, November 21st at 4:30, and again, it's here in the court building. The planning commission regular meeting will be December the 9th at 6:30 p.m. in the Bella Vista District Court building. The Board of Zoning Adjustment will be November the 19th at 5:30, again in the court building. And finally, the Board of Construction Appeals will be December the 10th in the Bella Vista District Court building. On behalf of all members of City Council, we wish you and your family a very, very happy and healthy Thanksgiving. We are adjourned. Thank you. $11:30.